have a problem. And this time it's not a question of whether or not the dead will be present at the second coming of Jesus Christ. Paul had already explained this in his first epistle. He had shown them that all believers, both past and alive, will meet the Lord in the clouds and then also appear with him. So this point was clear, but there still was a problem. The Thessalonians had once again been unsettled by false teachers, and their logic was more or less as follows. The day of the Lord is a day of tribulation and persecution, and you're being persecuted and going through tribulations, so the day of the Lord must already be here. Seems logical, doesn't it? Paul consciously starts this letter with his name, and also makes sure to end it with his own signature, because fake letters were being passed around claiming to be his own. And his desire was to reassure the Thessalonians. I mean, imagine if you had to go through the day of the Lord here on earth. If you read the Old Testament, you know the chilling warning the prophets gave time and time again concerning this day, when God himself would come to earth and execute judgment. Believe me, you don't want to be here. But this is the great hope of Christianity, and it also had been the hope of the Thessalonians. In the first letter, the apostles had even said, "You have faith, love, and hope." But now this hope was missing. They were facing such persecutions that they started to doubt. They weren't sure anymore if they would really be saved from this terrible day. And the apostle therefore explains that what you're going through is not the day of the Lord. This is what the day of the Lord will be like, and therefore continue firmly in the fear of the Lord. Yes, this was really a short version, but let's go deeper into the letter and look at the details. What were the Thessalonians experiencing if this wasn't the day of the Lord? It was what all those who want to live a godly life will suffer: persecution. Paul says that persecution is not a sign of God's rejection, but on the contrary, a confirmation and a sign of his approval. So persecution is not God's way of saying, "You're failing," but rather, "Your stand is spot on, and that's why unbelievers hate you so much. But don't move. I'll take care of that myself, and I'll do so on a certain day. And on that day, all those who do not know God and do not obey the gospel will take the worst consequences, dismissed from God's presence and into eternal damnation. But on that day, you will be renowned and will finally have true and lasting peace." Okay, so now that this has been clarified, how personal persecution should be classified, Paul moves on to explain the day of the Lord in more detail. In the first epistle, the apostle had already shown that the believers will be caught up first, and then the Lord will appear visibly with them. Here he adds another argument why the day of the Lord has not yet arrived. This day cannot be here yet because some drastic events must take place before, events which were already foretold in the Old Testament. And this was good material for the false teachers who harried the Thessalonians and certainly did so using the Old Testament. So, what were these events? Paul names two in particular. First, the general apostasy of Christianity from the Christian faith. And second, the appearance of a person whom he calls the man of sin or the son of perdition. This is an extremely obscure being who will pretend to be the Christ, seducing unbelieving Christians through his signs and wonders. Having finished then the doctrinal part, the apostle directly moves on to the practical consequences, and again encourage the Thessalonians to internalize the good faith and hold on to it. And in the third chapter, Paul assures this persecuted congregation of God's faithfulness, and again states that they will be saved from evil, and that through these trials, the love of God will not forsake them but carry them through this time of persecution. Closing the letter, Paul encouraged the Thessalonians to live in the fear of the Lord, and this means to separate from evil and to do good. He connects this to people who use the coming of the Lord to stop working, and he briefly and concisely says, "He who does not want to work should not eat." Thessalonians, make this point clear by standing your distance from them, and they will notice relatively quickly. But don't overdo it. This person is and still remains a brother. The greeting at the end also shows us that Paul used his own hands to pen this letter, and he wishes them the grace of the Lord.